The guy who predicted AI to build this $90 billion company uses paper lists, like actual paper. That's it. Damn, embarrassingly simple. So I had this whole productivity system, right? I'm talking like 15 different apps. I would use different databases in Notion and then use Obsidian for my personal notes because it had those backlinking capabilities for my notes and whatever, like digital garden and stuff. And I would use Todoist and TickTick for my to-do lists, and then I would use my Microsoft To Do for the work tasks, and then I had like workflowy, whatever. Like I mentioned about color-coded calendars that I used to have, different time tracking apps on my Mac and on my Pixel, whatever. Like different kinds of apps for no reason. I thought I was being super efficient and productive, right? But I soon realized I was spending so much time organizing my productivity system rather than actually being productive. Every Sunday, without fail, I would spend 2, maybe 3 hours just updating my databases, making sub-projects, making it prettier, making it look nicer and more organized, and sort of tweaking my workflows so that I could, complete maybe 2 to 3 different tasks more the following week, which actually I didn't end up doing. And I was following these productivity YouTubers who would say that I would need better apps, more apps, better systems and workflows to be able to get the most out of life and to do more stuff. But the more tools I added, the more crippled and suffocated I felt. I was basically procrastinating instead of doing the actual work, which requires brain power and effort and stuff, but organizing my stuff is easy, so I would do that. And then one day I'm just sitting there tweaking my 14th Notion project, and I'm saying to myself, what the hell am I doing here? Because in the early days, me being a productivity nerd, I would read every article, watch every YouTube video, listen to every podcast which had the word productivity or efficiency or getting things done inside of it. And that's when I stumbled upon Sam Altman's blog, and this is, by the way before his OpenAI days. And that's when I realized something that actually changed how I felt about productivity and how I went forward with it. And that is this realization that my brain has fixed amount of mental budget, mental energy every single day. Something like a battery that gets drained after it's charged to full. And I was using a major chunk of my battery on organizing my system rather than, working on the most important stuff that would move me forward in life. I was trapped in what they call productivity addiction, optimizing for the sake of optimizing, because now you have this complex system to maintain, and you have this sunk cost fallacy because you've already made the system, so why not make it work? And I was not doing it to actually be productive. And so after reading this blog by Sam Altman, everything changed. And in this video I'm gonna tell you how simplifying my productivity literally changed my life. Hey guys, if you're new here, I'm Anudeep. In this channel we talk about AI, tech, entrepreneurship and self-improvement. So if any of those things sound interesting, please consider subscribing. Enough of the cheeky plug. Let's get started. So I'm in this productivity rabbit hole, right? Following these gurus, trying their systems, buying their courses. I don't know how much money I've spent on these, but whatever. Even after doing all this, I was miserable and not actually getting things done. I was getting the hit from knowing about these new systems, these new methodologies, these new theories and tips and tricks, but I was not actually implementing them. Actually implementing all of them doesn't make sense because you can't, and it's often the fact that only a couple of them work for you and you have to implement it on a daily basis to be able to see the results. So here I am, 5 years ago, browsing and wasting time, procrastinating from doing the actual work, when I stumbled across this blog post from 2018 by a guy named Sam Altman. And at first, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? I mean, I haven't heard of him. Maybe he's a business person, because I haven't heard his name in the productivity space. Because as I mentioned, this is pre-ChatGPT days that I'm talking about. And the name of the post is called Productivity. Super simple, right? But then I start reading it. That urge to find the next shiny object, the new technique that will help me do more stuff, all of those are making me read this article. So this Sam guy, as we all know now, CEO of OpenAI, which is right now valued around $90 billion. I don't know if it's more or less, but that's a stat that I saw. And he's also the guy who ran Y Combinator and has actually helped create some of the biggest tech companies that we see right now. So basically this guy's portfolio is absolutely insane. And that's why he clearly knows something about getting things done, right? And his productivity is simple. Like, damn, it is embarrassingly simple, like almost insulting to somebody who's building these complex systems and yet not getting anything done. The guy who predicted AI and then actually built this $90 billion company uses paper lists, like actual paper. That's it. And his 3 most popular basic principles of productivity is something that you would assume your mom would tell you, and it's too obvious and that works, but at that scale. And all of this is exactly what made me realize that what I'm doing is not the right path, at least for me. So systems comes down to 3 pillars, and when I first read them, I was like, that's it? That is all what the hype is about, because they seem too simple for a man who's doing so much. And the 3 pillars are: number 1, make sure to get the most important shit done. Number 2, don't waste your time on stupid things. And number 3, make a ton of lists. That's it. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, come on, like this cannot be a system, because it has to be complex, and it has to have certain moving parts, and if you have to do big things in life, you have to have some sophisticated systems. Plus everybody talks about working smarter, not harder, as this Sam dude was talking about in this blog post, but nobody actually tells you how to figure out what to work on, and separate the noise from the signal, separate the busy work from the actually important work. But in this blog itself, Sam talks about having a fixed budget of cognitive output every single day. He literally says, I have a fixed budget of cognitive output per day and I can spend it on whatever. But if I let it go on unimportant stuff, then I never have time to get to the really important stuff. Think about that for a second. Your brain isn't like a computer that can keep on processing every single minute of every single day, of every single week, of every single year. As I mentioned, it's more like a phone battery. After it's charged to 100%, often after you have a sleep, every decision, every task, every switch that you make after you wake up depletes the battery by a few percentage. And the funny part is, Sam is not optimizing to do more stuff. He is optimizing to do the right things. This is actually also what Naval says, that what you work on is more important than how hard you work. And I can actually make a separate video about that, because Naval is an absolute legend and stuff. But coming back to Sam Altman, he says that it doesn't matter how fast we move if you're moving in the wrong direction. So figuring out the direction, figuring out what to work on is more important than how hard you work, how fast you go. This actually hit me hard, and this was actually pre-Naval. I was not introduced to Naval's wisdom and stuff. Because I was moving so fast, I was doing a bunch of stuff. I'm still doing a bunch of stuff, but hopefully in the right direction. But in those days, I was doing so much. At the end of the day, I was feeling like I didn't achieve so much, because I just wasted a lot of time. I was busy, and I was being productive, but that was not showing on paper, and it was a shit show basically. So I decided to test it out. I decided to test out Sam Altman's system. But the thing is, I am not gonna use paper lists in 2025. Like literally, that is something that I've tried. I have used paper lists, but it is so clumsy that you have to carry a diary and a pen and paper everywhere and note it down. With the work that I do, I need some sort of synchronized system where I can maybe quick capture on my watch or on my phone, and then when I sit on a desk, I can have those notes on my screen, and then I can organize them, take detailed notes on them, do deep research, organize them, whatever. And then I have this system where I can block my calendar, and then I can see my calendar on my phone, and book appointments from the phone. Like there are these gazillion benefits of having a digital system. So I wanted to replicate his system into a digital one without falling into the pitfall of making it too complex or too heavy to operate on a day-to-day basis. As I mentioned, I was trying to replicate Sam's system with all the things that I do. I have a day job, so I have to work 40 hours a week. That is a full-time work. And then on the side, I work on this YouTube channel. I have my personal projects, personal development, coding projects. I have my personal stuff. On an average week, I end up working 60 to 75 hours. And I needed something that actually works with all of this, not some idealized version of, Sam Altman or whatever. As I mentioned, the challenge was taking his paper lists and translating all of that into a digital system without making it too complex. And I was thinking, how do you translate make a ton of lists, as Sam says, into not having 50 different cards on Notion or whatever? And how do you keep focused when you have all these different things pulling you in all directions? And after a lot of trial and error, I realized that all you need is just 3 tools: Google Calendar for time blocking and avoiding overcommitment, Todoist for list making and making a ton of lists, but organizing those lists by time frame and project, by daily, monthly, weekly, or by simple areas of life, rather these complex nested subtasks and sublists. And number 3, a note-taking app, which in my case, Notion. I would have wanted to use Obsidian or some form of these flashy note-taking app where I could use backlinks and stuff and make these graph connections. But Notion worked well for me. But this time I was careful not to use 20 to 30 different projects at the same time. I only allowed myself to use 3 projects at a time, not 2, not 15, not 30, just 3 at a time. And let me be the one to tell you, this constraint is what allows you to focus. Because when you work on just 3 big things, you get really good at saying no to everything else. You get really clear about what actually matters, and once you have that clarity, then you can pick up speed in that direction. And before this, I had projects scattered over different databases in Notion and different task managers on calendar, and I was so haphazardly juggling them all together. I was constantly context switching between different modes of thinking, because different tools require you to think in different ways. And now I wake up, I know what my 2 projects are that I want to work on. I know the tasks in those projects that I need to take care of. I have my appointment, I have my deep work slots on my calendar, and I just do it. And believe me, now I am getting more done in those 60 or 70 hours that I work, more than I ever did with my complex productivity system. Because I'm not spending my mental energy managing the system. The system sort of disappears in the background. So after using this adapted system for months, I can actually say why simplicity beats complexity. And it is not about just feeling less overwhelmed. There are real measurable advantages that compound over time. Most people think that if you're working on complex, long projects, your system also needs to be complex and long and sophisticated. Like, how can you run multiple businesses or manage multiple hobbies or, manage your multiple classes with your personal health, with your personal life, all those things with just 3 simple tools? Because, we have a bunch of stuff to do apart from the main thing that we do in our lives, because this is the 21st century and, we have complex lives. And one of the questions that I used to ask myself, which you might also be asking, is shouldn't I use that project manager which can, tell me what project that I'm working on and which task am I supposed to do, which can track the time and all those analytics and stuff? Like, all that's BS. Sure, maybe for small and big businesses they need to measure those metrics, but your personal life is not meant to be measured that way, because these complex systems do not scale. They break down under pressure. When you are in a time crunch, when there's deadline, when you're putting out fires everywhere, managing the system itself is the last thing that you want to do. And simple systems is what they call anti-fragile. They become stronger under pressure and stress, because when I'm having a crazy week, when I have a lot to do, I don't need to tweak my system and stuff. I just wake up, I just see what's on my plate through my notes, to my task manager and through my calendar, and I just get to work, and it's all managed and stuff. And I just take maybe 2 minutes, 5 minutes at the end of the day to just synchronize everything, to make everything in place, and that's it. Plus there's a compounding effect that people don't talk about. Every minute I'm spending not organizing the system, I'm actually getting the real work done, and over weeks and months and years, that compounds over way more work and way less stress. Like, I would spend 1 hour daily just managing my system, updating databases, organizing files, checking different apps or different things, which was just a means of procrastination now that I think about it. And all that is 5 to 6 hours every single week, 24 hours a month. That is 3 full working days a month. Like, literally, that's insane. And now all of that time goes in actually building things, and that has actually made all the difference. So, most people try to optimize everything all at once, and that becomes a lot overwhelming. Or they are afraid of simplifying because they feel that, if they remove this app or if they remove that particular project manager, their life would fall apart and, they would not be able to catch up. But chances are that if you are watching this video and if you're watching till now, your life will just continue to go on and you will feel less burdened if you just remove one app that you're using right now out of the 10 that you use. Maybe it's a time tracking app that you don't ever look at. Maybe it's a project managing app. Maybe it's your project manager that is supposed to help you but is stressing you out. Whatever it is, identify it and just try living without that app for a couple of weeks, and then you can continue eliminating those which don't give you value until you come down to your basic fundamental tools. And if you want to see my complete breakdown on how I use my 60 to 70 hours, what apps I use, how I manage my life, feel free to drop a comment down below. I can maybe make a follow-up video on that. And also feel free to share your productivity advice on, how you are managing your life. I'm always looking to, improve my productivity workflow. So I would love to see your workflows down in the comments description. Maybe you have even found a simpler approach than Sam Altman. Who knows? Okay, that is a lot of productivity advice for today. Thank you guys for watching. As always, it means a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.